It's a daunting task in Columbus. Is Ryan Day afraid of a challenge? No. He didn't kick Texas off of his schedule. Some schools would have done that with their Big Ten slate, but they are not. So they're just going to play top 3 hardest schedule in college football. Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes is here to discuss Texas in the non-conference. You go at Iowa. You also have road games at Indiana and at USC in a 3-week span with a bye sandwiched in between. Then you play Oregon after the Trojans, and of course, there is good old Michigan for Kyle Whittingham's induction into the rivalry. All in 1 year, Jay. Is this the hardest Buckeye schedule this decade?
Yeah, I believe it is, and it's not even close. You didn't talk about the trip to Nebraska the week before playing Michigan, which on paper, it's not a close matchup when you compare the talent of both schools, but it's still Nebraska, a place that they sell out, and they don't care if they have 2 wins or 10. The fans are always going to show up and be very loud. This schedule is difficult, but Ryan Day recruits a team ready for games like this. At least they should be ready. Julian Sand, Jeremiah Smith, Bo Jackson, the guys on defense, Patricia's still there. This team is ready for whatever comes in the upcoming season. And so, yes, the schedule on the paper, it is going to be very, very difficult. However, the players are ready for whatever they get in the regular season.
You brought up that Nebraska game. I think if you were to circle one matchup and say trap game, Nebraska has all the makings of it. Now, here's the problem with that, but also why it kind of fits into the trap game narrative when you hear that discussion come up in college football. It's on the road. Week before the rivalry game, Nebraska is not going to have the same caliber roster as Ohio State is going to. They didn't this past year, and they'll probably be starting Anthony Calandria at quarterback. I bet he would turn the ball over at least once against this Buckeyes defense, but I don't think you can overstate the importance of having gotten a comfortable win against Michigan this past year, so that you don't have that psychological factor in the back of your mind to emphasize, oh, man, gotta have this one. You always have to have Michigan, obviously. That everybody in college football knows that. But in that particular game, you're going to have a much better team, and I think it just helps a little to avoid looking ahead to Michigan when, we got them last year. We're not still trying to get over that hump, and you did it in Ann Arbor.
So the psychological part may not fit for the players. I think it still does for Ryan Day. Because if my memory is working correctly, I don't believe he's beat Michigan at home. He beat him in 2019 on the road, I believe, and last year was also in Ann Arbor. So with Ryan Day, when he listens to storylines and he knows all the things that people say bad about him, he still wants to check this box off of his list. And so, yes, on paper, that Michigan thing for the players, it's not really as huge as it was last year. But for Ryan Day, this is really a big thing. I think the players are going to be fine in the Nebraska week. You could find Ryan Day looking ahead the next week, and maybe he could make some bad calls and some misreads because he is doing the wrong thing. So psychologically, I think for the players are fine. But we all know how Ryan Day is when it comes to storylines, what people are saying about him, what people are writing, looking for Lou Holtz after a game in South Bend. I mean, we know how Ryan Day does in these situations, and so I hope Ryan Day's fine that week, but a large part of me thinks that the Nebraska week, Ryan Day might not be all the way there.
I want to go to that Texas game in week 2. Once again, it'll be one of the marquee non-conference college football games in the entire country for all of the first 3 or 4 weeks of non-conference play. In a world where Indiana bailed on playing, I believe it was Virginia, which, Virginia was in the ACC championship game this past year, which is why I always say, when I want schools to schedule their non-conference, they control it. I don't think they should. I say if you just put any Power 4 on there, I'm not going to criticize you because the fluctuation year to year can be crazy. 3 years ago, what was putting Indiana on the schedule? A cupcake, right? It was easy, and now they're literally the best team in college football. So I'm more concerned with the process there, but that's a game. There are some programs out there, maybe USC, who Ohio State does play, that would look at their schedule and say, no, we don't really want to play at Texas when we've got all these other games. And look, I think with this schedule, 9-3 Ohio State will get a consideration for the college football playoff. I don't know if they will get in it until we go to 2014. I know.
It's coming. We don't want it, but it's coming.
I know. We talked about it earlier. But when you look at what the Buckeyes have here, there's a lot of margin for error. 10-2, I think they coast into the playoff. They're going to have a preseason, top 5 ranking, probably. Whether you think that should matter or not, it does, and it will. They will have brand bias in their favor, preseason ranking in their favor. I don't think they'd be punished in a big way if they lose that game at Texas. Then they'll rack up wins, and then they'll get to that stretch that we'll talk about in a moment. But what do you make of Ohio State keeping that Texas game on the schedule?
That's how it always should be. You should always be a team in the Big Ten that is always looking out there to play a power conference team. Now, it is Texas, which is a daunting task. However, I don't care. Put Texas on there, put Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, put anybody there. You should keep that game. And I'm glad Ryan Day did, because we know how Roman is. Roman will mention that Ohio State dodged Washington when Washington joined the Big Ten. And I was not a fan of that move. I wish they would have kept him and made it a non-conference game that year, which they could have done. But
other schools have done that. The Big 12 has done that several times. Arizona's had a couple games like that.
Correct. And I wish Ohio State and Ryan Day would have done that as well. There is still the possibility that the Alabama home-and-home series, which starts next year, will get canceled because Alabama's potentially going to move away from that game. I hope they don't. I hope they keep it, because it's not only big for you in the non-conference, it tests your team early. So, yeah, you want to play a power conference team in your non-conference, like you're checking that box. But you're going to test your quarterback in Julian Sand, Jeremiah Smith, Bo Jackson, the offensive line. That's going to be a veteran unit, but they maybe some guys at different places. So you're trying to figure out how they fit in against a very good Texas team. The defense that's replacing over half the starters from last year, you're going to be able to test them very, very early. So the non-conference, not just playing a power conference team, you're testing yourselves to see if your work in the offseason was great. And if it wasn't great, if there were some errors, they will be exposed against Texas, even if Ohio State wins the game. And they had some errors from their preparation in the non-conference slate or in the preseason. Those will be exposed because Texas will be good. Arch Manning should be a Heisman front runner or one of the favorites to be a Heisman finalist in the fall, but so should Julius Sand and Jeremiah Smith.
The stretch that will really define Ohio State's season, whether they get back to the playoff, have a chance to win a national championship, mid-October to early November. 3 games, 1 bye, 2 on the road. You go at Indiana, Big Ten championship game rematch in Bloomington. I think that has got game of the year potential written all over it, Jay, because of the teams, players, rematch. Bloomington is electric. They are going to sell that place out and then some. Then a bye at USC, host Oregon. A couple of former Pac-12 foes there. But that stretch, to me, you get through that at 2-1. I don't think, barring something wildly unexpected elsewhere, like losing at home to Michigan again, which wouldn't shock me, but in year 1 for Kyle Whittingham, would surprise me a little, given what Ohio State did to Michigan a year ago. I think Michigan has improved. I think Ohio State is also a lot more experienced in certain places, like quarterback, compared to what they were last year with Julian Sand returning. I think it's that 3-game stretch. I think that's when we learn, is this a good Ohio State team? Is this a great Ohio State team? Can this Ohio State team go win the national championship?
This is a big moment for Arthur Smith. And I still can't believe he's the OC at Ohio State. That's not something I'm a big fan of, Spencer. And I think listeners of Locked on Buckeyes are probably annoyed with me for not being all in on Ryan Day's hire. But you're going to get the honest opinion of me. I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Could have had Chip Kelly. You let Northwestern pull him away.
Oh, my gosh. That's a wild thing Ryan Day let happen to his friend. But this is a big moment for the team. It could make or break their spot in the CFP. But also, you're going to learn a lot about Arthur Smith in this stretch. Now, you may say, Jay, aren't there games earlier that he may be exposed in? Yeah, maybe at Iowa. Definitely that at the game at Indiana before the bye week. If Arthur Smith isn't ready for Big Ten football, against the heavyweight, I can't believe I use a heavyweight, but they are. If he's not ready, it doesn't matter what Julian Sand or Jeremiah Smith might be able to do on the field. If the wrong plays are called, if the wrong personnel is out there, it's a similar story to what happened a year ago where the Buckeyes were using too many heavy sets. They weren't well prepared for what the Hoosiers defense was going to do, and they only scored 10 points in the Big Ten championship game. That's still weird to me as well, but Cignetti knows what he's doing. He figured out a way to slow down the Buckeyes offense. And if Arthur Smith is not ready for this game, it might not look good for the Buckeyes.
I should put you in touch with a buddy of mine who's a big Steelers fan. He'll tell you all about Arthur Smith and what he thinks about his bona fides as a play caller. Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes, great as always. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.